let's move to the NBA All-Star weekend. Bert, there it was so bad. It was so bad in Indiana that the NBA came out. They basically blamed Indiana for not being fun enough, right? Like like that was basically their rationale. So now there's let me pull up the rules that they said. All-Star weekend city requirements for hosting All-Star weekend. You have to have at minimum 7,250 hotel rooms and a minimum 3 five-star hotels. You also need a convention center of 650,000 square feet of space and 75 non-domestic or non-stop domestic flights and at least 20 international flights. So sorry, Cleveland. Sorry, Portland. Sorry, Salt Lake City. I know you just hosted one. Cleveland just hosted
I bet
one.
you all those cities have these requirements, by the way.
So no, the somebody actually did the math. I mean, there's not.
So Cleveland doesn't?
Cleveland does not. They do not meet the new requirements. Now they just hosted it last year, so um, that doesn't really matter to them because they weren't going to get one for like at least another 10 years anyway.
Yeah.
But that basically they're trying to force the All Star game to go to the big cities, the
Yeah.
Dallases, the New Yorks, the LAs, the Las
Miami.
Vegas, Miami, things like that. And if you're going to get the teams to try players to try, putting them in a place like Indiana is probably not going to do it. So I think the NBA's rationale is to, hey, go to the fun cities where all the strip clubs and clubs and fun things are at. And so I just wanted to get your boys' thoughts if you have any thoughts on that to why the NBA did this or if you think it's a good idea or not.
I don't hate it. I don't. And Germ, like, we spoke about, what one of the ideas we brought up around Super Bowl time was like, why isn't the Super Bowl just hosted in a couple of major cities where there's main traffic, like, and the weather is typically always good, like how well things went in Vegas this year. You're Vegas, you're LA, you're Miami, like you're these areas where they're high traffic, there's things to do. They're gonna bring fans there because they're going to go for more than just the All-Star game. So I think this is smart on the NBA standpoint. It might get the players to play harder or at least, be enthused about going certain places, but it's also going to bring a lot of extra tourism to those areas during that time because people are going to go, yeah, I'll go to Vegas for the All-Star game. And guess what? I'm going to stay a little bit afterwards too and make a trip out of it. Same thing if it was in Miami or New York or anything else. But I can guarantee you people going Indiana are just going to the All-Star game and they're leaving because there's probably not much more to do there. The only thing I can at least picture in describing it to is I've been to the Football Hall of Fame twice now. And I can tell you that the only thing in Canton, Ohio is the Football Hall of Fame. And an Applebee's where you can get your burger pink or no pink. So, and that's not, I'm not making that up. When they ask for your temperature, they ask if you want it pink or no pink.
Oh.
But instead, you know, you can go to a major city and get anything any way you want it. So honestly, it's smart. I will say, devil's advocate, it does suck for those smaller markets where, you think like this could really help bring in, more revenue or, I am thinking about the fans that are in smaller markets that maybe don't have the means to make it to an all-star game elsewhere. So if they, if it's their turn to get an all-star game and they're excited about it, like, they're not going to get it. And, poor Timmy's never going to see an all-star game because he can't travel to, Miami or New York or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, revenue is king. So
Yeah, because think about it. Who are the two biggest names in like Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio? That rules out San Antonio
yeah,
in terms of NBA. That's a small market, and Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. It rules out Milwaukee. So it's like cutting your nose and spite your face kind of deal. I agree, Bert. Me and you have talked about it. I think, and this was before the Raiders moved to Vegas. The Super Bowl should have been in Vegas every year. And
yeah.
we talked about this before they had a team there. So, like, yeah, pick a central location. This is where the Super Bowl is every year. I'd build a gigantic, make SoFi look like a fucking minor league. Like I'd build a giant fucking obelisk in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
And that's where the Super Bowl is. That's where the big events are. Like,
Yeah.
and just bring people to that. Like it'd be a lot easier. And so, but I am all for this. The NBA is insufferable either way. There's very little you can do to get the players to be enthused, at least they'll be happy, and maybe you'll get more off the court stuff. I'm all for getting rid of the All-Star game. Period. It's a break for the players. They're not going to want to play hard. If you want to, moving it to the end of the season doesn't really do anything because now there are a lot of them are tired. They want to get over basketball, and I know the counter argument is they play in like the LA Fitness leagues and the Drew leagues and things like that. But there's only a handful of players that do that. It's not a lot, and again, that's on their time, not on the NBA's time. There's a little bit of a difference there. So, it'll be interesting to see if the NBA kind of sticks with this. But to me, if you want to garner interest in the All-Star game, because it's not about the game anymore, it's about bringing celebrities in, making it an attraction. It's a glorified exhibition game. The players are not going to be magically more competitive, and so you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. At least make it somewhere exciting that everything around the game itself will be better, right? So it's going to be better in New York. It's going to be better in Philadelphia. It's going to be better in LA. It's going to be better in Miami. It's going to be way better in Vegas. So the NBA is trying to do something. A lot of people like, oh, you got to make the All-Star game better. They can't make the game better, but they can make All-Star weekend better. And to me, that's the first step. So sorry, Salt Lake City. Sorry, San Antonio. Sorry, Milwaukee.
I think that was my real big pushback with what both of you guys are saying, though, is like, and I love what you guys are saying, because especially for little Timmy, I totally get it. If you're in Iowa, if you're in Wyoming, if you're in Utah, like Kobe talks about that all the time, and him and Vanessa Bryant were very open about this is why we play every single game, because there are kids who, hey, my dad saved up all year long just to get $1,000 All-Star ticket. So maybe we can't afford to go to every single Pistons game in Detroit, but we got to see every single player for the majority on one night on one big stage. Like at the end of the day, whether it's in Indy or whether it's in LA, tickets are going to be over $1,000. That's just what it is right now in revenue. But the problem for me is we always wondered, what's it going to be like when a team finally scores 200 points? What are they going to be? How is it going to look? It has to be the greatest basketball we've ever seen. That fucking sucked. That was horrible. That was the lousiest 200 points I've ever seen in my life. And Luka Doncic looked like some guy at LA Fitness that I go up against in his mid-40s every single weekend. Like, it was absolutely horrid. I'm seeing a guy take full court shots with 25 seconds left in the half just because he doesn't give a shit. Like, I remember as a shorty, like as a kid, you're watching Kevin Garnett lob one up to a young Kobe Bryant and like in MJ's face, like, what are you going to do about it? And Shaq's just standing there watching it happen. Like Allen Iverson going up a tick for tack with some of the greatest to do it. And it's like, at what point is it going to matter whether Dua Lipa's in the stands or whether it's Jack Harlow or whether it's somebody else of that magnitude, even Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift? I don't care. It doesn't matter. At what point are the players going to start to give a shit again? Anthony Edwards even vocalized that and said, man, this is just vacation. We're just here to have fun. Fuck that, dude. You're here. If you're on a bottom feeder team, if you are a Victor Wembanyama, go out there and shit on some of the best players in the league for the next 40, 60 minutes. That's all you got to do. Like, at the end of the day, I don't care where it is, whether it's LA, New York, Chicago, which shame on both of y'all because Chicago did a hell of a job in 2020. I tell you what, I met Damian Lillard and Pusha T and Liz Cambage at an Adidas hip store. It was crazy. But it was one of those things for me where it's like, you have to start getting the players more involved. I can't just sit here and look at Jaylen Brown in the dunk contest and say, this is good enough. Now, shout out Mac McClung because he's valid. He belongs in there. The other two cats, Obi Toppin's brother, who I don't even remember the first name of, I'm sorry. I in that Rookie on the Heat, I actually do try to remember the first name of him because he's decent, but I forgot it at this moment. But I think at the end of the day, man, you got to start getting bigger names involved, and you have to start actually making the game something worth watching again. Like, it can't just be it's the All-Star game, so we have to pay $1,000 to watch this. What we saw was not worth $1,000. If I'm watching Luka take full court shots and airball it by a million miles and completely just nailing the first girl in the front row in the head with the ball, not even hitting the basket, it's like I paid $1,000 to watch Luka bullshit and get, in 2 years, back-to-back All-Star games, Luka hasn't gotten over 15 points in both games combined. The fuck are you doing?
I never want to see Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic in an All Star game ever again. You can
Horrible.
name them All Stars. They're boring. And Luka doesn't give a shit, and Jokic is not like his game doesn't suit the All Star game. And I know they both don't care. Jokic cares more about horses than he does playing in the All Star game. But I never want to see them in the All Star game ever again.